everyone, and welcome to HOA Fight Club. I'm Raylene Schifano. I'm making these videos to help consumers and homeowners know how to deal and fight with their HOA boards and property managers and attorneys. Today I'd like to discuss if you or someone else sues your association. Most of you don't know that if your association gets sued, you get sued. So if you're a homeowner in an association, whether it's a HOA or a condo association, you are taking on the responsibilities of what the board's decisions are. So if the board makes a decision to avoid doing a pool fix or putting a fence around the pool and a child falls into that pool and gets hurt, then you are liable for that decision. So I remember this last year, that was a discussion. One of the filters in our pool at our condo association is not up to code. So that is something that needs to be changed, and the board decided to delay that fix because the health department wasn't going to come check it. They were sure they weren't going to come check it right away, so they could probably get away with not changing that filter until the next season, or maybe a couple seasons away. That's taken a risk, and it's also could risk somebody's life if they get caught in that filter. So if that board makes that decision, they're making that decision for you also, and that's something that you need to know. And if you don't go to the board meetings, you're not in the know. You don't understand that they've made that decision for you. So I think you would want to know those decisions. So let's talk about things that you as an association can get sued for. The first thing is failure to upkeep the property. So we already know that as my association failed to upkeep my property, I was in the right to sue the association. Now that is not something that I wanted to do. I would have much rather had the association just come in and repair my property. That is something that the board chose not to do. So after 3 years, we had to decide whether we were going to sue the association to recoup the funds that we had spent. And that took a lot of time for my husband and I to make that decision, because we knew we were just suing ourselves. But in the long run, we had no other choice because we could not get out of the property otherwise. The failure to upkeep the roofs. Our roofs are not up to code. They were never permitted prior to our purchase in 2014. The roofs were built in 2013, or re-roofed in 2013, but they were never permitted by the city that we live in. So those are things that we sued the association for because they failed to upkeep the property. And if that was disclosed in the resale survey when we purchased, we wouldn't have purchased that property. So those are really important things to know, that you as a property owner are responsible for those items. So if you see things on your property or in your HOA or condo association that need to be repaired, you should report them and demand that they get repaired right away so that the association isn't liable for those kind of damages. The next thing that you can get sued for is if a homeowner submits plans for things to be changed, to want something architecturally done, and the board gets to approve or deny those plans. Well, if the board approves those plans accordingly to the declaration and the CC&Rs, they will be able to show in court that they did correctly. If they do it selectively or don't go accordingly to the CC&Rs, that could put the association up for a lawsuit. So the board really wants to make sure though they follow those CC&Rs fairly and subjectively so that they don't get in trouble, because that could put the association up for a lawsuit. I do know that there are homeowners out there that have had neighbors that got plans approved. The neighbors committed fraud when they submitted their plans. They took a fire hydrant out of the plans when they submitted it to the board, and then when they got the approval, they put a driveway in, deleting the fire hydrant when they submitted the plans to the city and the association. So that homeowner that deleted that fire hydrant should be held responsible, and the association should make sure they're held responsible. And of course, that is now a lawsuit. So those are the things that you have to be aware of, and the only way you're going to know is by going to those meetings. Election disputes. This is another big deal. We all know that the board uses proxies and is usually the only people that get to see those proxies. So you can always contest an election. I know in Washington State, they've now made it so that you have so many days, I think it is 90, don't quote me on that, or 60 days to contest any decisions or elections of your board. So the board now has to keep records of those decisions, and you have time to complain about those or contest those decisions. Yes, you probably would have to do it in court, but at least you have time to contest everything. So make sure you know those laws. That's in the RCW 6490 for Washington State. Pursuing violations. If you have a rogue board and they are pursuing illegal violations like the rogue board we were dealing with, they were pursuing garage violations. Well, garages the owners owned. So when they were fining us for smoking in our garage or parking in our garages wrong or doing work in our garages or whatever we were doing in our garages and they were fining us for it, that was illegal fines, and they were foreclosing on homeowners and taking their homes for those fines. So those are things that they could get sued for. That was part of our lawsuit. So you want to make sure that if you are pursuing violations, that you are pursuing them correctly. Do not fine people for smoking in their backyards when they're actually not smoking in their backyards and when you don't have any evidence. Due process should always be offered. So those are things that the entire association can get sued for. So you want to make sure that your board is not fining people into foreclosure. You want to make sure that they are being ethically responsible with their decision making. And you can only do that by being in the know and going to those meetings. The next thing is you may want to start a lawsuit or you may get sued to restrict the board's actions. You can go to civil court and file an injunction to restrict a board's actions. This does cost a lot of money and it's almost impossible to do, but it is possible to file an injunction to restrict their actions. You'd have to see what it is to do in your state. But if you don't like something that the board's doing, that is something that the board can get sued for. So now I'm not saying that you will win, but those are things that the board can get sued for. If they don't do things right, homeowners can sue the association for those things. Whether they win or lose, it doesn't matter because it costs the association money, and that means it costs the homeowners money. So just keeping the board to do what they're supposed to do is really, really important so that you know that your money is being spent wisely. The other thing is that associations get sued for a lot is either ADA or pet disputes is a really big topic. So the American disabilities, you need to make sure that you are always watching for those. Those are something that we should not be infringing upon those rights. And as for pet disputes, those are something that are usually in the bylaws and that ahead of time, but with the emotional support and those kind of animals, those are becoming more disputed these days. So that's something you should be aware of what's going on in your property. Again, you can avoid all these lawsuits by knowing your CC&Rs. The other way to avoid them is by not being in an HOA or a condo association in the first place. That is my thing for the day. See you on the next one.